Humza Yousaf to become the first minister of Scotland. Mass protest in Israel leaves flights disrupted and universities closed. Muslims gather at Times Square for Ramadan meal and prayer. Georgetown opens its first campus mosque. Muslims, Christians, and Buddhists meet for Iftar in Stockholm. Iranian women watch Iran-Russia football amid unrest. China forbids Uyghur Muslims from fasting during Ramadan. And India summons Canada's High Commissioner over Sikh protesters. From Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Saamiyah Syed. Our top story tonight, Humza Harun Yousaf became the first Muslim to be elected as the leader of the Scotland National Party. Now, the BBC reports that Yousaf is set to become the First Minister of Scotland. The 37-year-old said it would be his greatest honour if elected First Minister on Tuesday when the Scottish Parliament votes on it. Yousaf has served multiple posts in the Scottish cabinet. Born in Glasgow to Pakistani parents, he has served as the president of the Glasgow University Muslim Students Association. Israel was at a standstill on Monday after a historic general strike. The protest is aimed at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans to weaken the judiciary. Flights have been disrupted, McDonald's restaurants, shopping malls, and universities are closed. More than 24 mayors from across Israel went on a hunger strike on Monday in Jerusalem. Later in the day, the government postponed the vote on reform for a couple of months. The proposed changes to the legal system gives politicians more power on selecting judges. They would also limit the Supreme Court's powers to strike down legislation. Critics of the Supreme Court, including many in the right-wing coalition government, say the bench is left-leaning. The FBI and the NYPD are investigating a death threat sent to Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg in a letter laced with white powder. Bragg is investigating former President Donald Trump about a $130,000 hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels in 2016. He has presented evidence to a grand jury that is considering whether to indict Trump, though no action has yet been taken. Law enforcement sources indicated that the letter was addressed to Bragg. It read, "Alvin, I am going to kill you," NBC News reported. It also contained a small amount of white powder. The letter was immediately contained, and law enforcement determined that there was no dangerous substance, the district attorney's office says. Meanwhile, Trump used the first rally of his 2024 presidential campaign on Saturday in Texas to slam Bragg's investigation. For 7 years, you and I have been taking on the corrupt, rotten, sinister forces trying to destroy America, Trump said. He added that the Biden administration's weaponization of our system of justice is straight out of the Stalinist Russia horror show. Muslims in New York gathered in Times Square on Saturday evening to break their fast with an iftar meal after sunset. Millions of Muslims around the world welcomed Ramadan on Wednesday evening with the first Tarawih, the special nightly Ramadan prayer. Fasting from dawn to dusk during Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is a time of self-examination and increased religious devotion. Muslims throughout the world fast for different hours. The longest fasting will take place in Greenland's Nukes city with 15 hours and 21 minutes, followed by Iceland's capital Reykjavik with 15 hours and 16 minutes. Georgetown University has officially opened its Yaro Mahmoud Mosque on March 18th. It is open to Muslim and non-Muslim students at Georgetown. The mosque offers 5 daily prayer services, educational programming, spiritual discussions, and a built-in community. For many students, it also offers a place of solace and refuge. The Yaro Mahmoud Masjid is one of 7 sacred spaces on Georgetown's main campus. The masjid is named after Yaro Mahmoud, who was born in 1736 in West Africa. Mahmoud was kidnapped by slave traders when he was 16 and sent to Maryland. He was able to buy his freedom after 44 years. 4 years later, he bought land in Georgetown, worked to purchase his son and partner's freedom, and helped others purchase theirs. The slave trade's legacy of racism haunts the world to this day, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres says. He delivered the message on Saturday on the 16th Annual International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Guterres said, "We can draw a straight line from the centuries of colonial exploitation to the social and economic inequalities of today." He added that racist tropes it popularized to rationalize the inhumanity of the slave trade, and it can be seen in the resurgence of white supremacist hate today. The UN Secretary General said the evil enterprise of enslavement lasted for over 400 years and has a history of suffering and barbarity that shows humanity at its worst. A UN statement focused on the racist ideology behind the slave trade that enslaved more than 13 million Africans. A story on Muslim, Christian, and Buddhist communities coming together for an iftar comes with details after the break, so stay tuned and we will be right back. Welcome back. Representatives from the Muslim, Christian, and Buddhist communities came together for an iftar or a fast-breaking meal on Saturday in Stockholm. Tahir Akan, chairman of the Swedish Islamic Federation, said Ramadan brings people together from different religions and cultures in a climate of love. He said, "From now on, we will continue our dialogues and try to come together in these beautiful atmospheres." Turkish ambassador to Sweden, Yonet Kantezal, thanked the Swedish Federation of Islamic Associations for organizing the dinner. A week-long meeting between a 22-member high-level delegation from Burma and Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh's camps concluded this week. There was little or no significant progress, according to Rohingya leaders and Bangladeshi authorities. The representatives came to Bangladesh on March 15th and stayed for a week near the Rohingya camps in the southern border district of Cox's Bazar. They sought to verify a list of persecuted Rohingya Muslims for repatriation. Bangladesh is home to nearly 1.2 million Rohingya refugees. In the wake of international community pressure, Burma's military junta sent the representatives to verify 429 Rohingya refugees enlisted by Bangladesh for repatriation. Mohammad Mizanur Rahman, Bangladesh's Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner, told Anadolu Agency that the repatriation process is complicated and time-consuming. Earlier, Burmese authorities demanded some documents from the Rohingya before starting the repatriation process. Rahman said after door-to-door visits to 222 Rohingya families, the group collected and verified papers from 125 families. He added, for newborn babies in Rohingya camps, Burmese authorities are demanding court certificates. Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh's congested camps accuse Burma's military junta of harassing them. Hundreds of Iranian women cheered for the home side during a friendly football game against the Russian national team at Azadi Stadium in the capital, Tehran. The match ended in a 1-1 draw. It came against the backdrop of months-long protests triggered by the September death in custody of Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Iranian Kurd arrested for an alleged breach of Iran's dress code for women. Hundreds of people, including dozens of security personnel, have been killed and thousands have been arrested in connection with the protests. Iranian officials described the rallies as riots fomented by the United States and its allies. Football's global governing body, FIFA, has been pushing for years for Iran to open its stadiums to women. It ordered in September 2019 to allow access to stadiums without restrictions. Tehran has since allowed women in sports stadiums more frequently. As Muslims worldwide observe the holy month of Ramadan, Uyghur Muslims in China are facing a prohibition on fasting. Chinese authorities have instructed Muslims in East Turkestan, the northwestern region of the country, that their children should not fast during the holy month. Children were also questioned by authorities to see if their parents were fasting. Dilshat Rushet, spokesperson of the World Uyghur Congress, said Chinese authorities have implemented a 24-hour monitoring system in the over 1,800 villages of Xinjiang. That includes home inspections of Uyghur families. According to reports, local human rights groups warn that China's 11.4 million Uyghur Muslims are at risk of being wiped out completely under the Communist Party's rules. A report by a coalition of rights groups says that Uyghurs have been identified by Beijing as a threat to be solved through forced assimilation. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on state television on Saturday plans to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Anti-war campaigners have been warning about such an escalation, which alarmed disarmament advocates and experts. The international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons condemned this extremely dangerous escalation, which makes the use of nuclear weapons more likely. The group said, in the context of the war in Ukraine, the likelihood of miscalculation or misinterpretation is extremely high. The deployment decision comes 13 months into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United Kingdom this week revealed plans to provide Ukraine with armor-piercing rounds containing depleted uranium. Putin said the UK's announcement probably served as a reason why Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko agreed to the plan. He added, the United States, which has this world's second largest nuclear arsenal after Russia, long ago deployed their nuclear weapons on the territory of their allies, NATO countries, and in Europe. Putin argued the move will not violate Russia's international non-proliferation treaty obligations, according to a BBC translation. India summoned Canada's High Commissioner on Sunday to convey strong concern over Sikh protesters in Canada breaching the security of India's diplomatic mission and consulates. Hundreds of protesters gathered in front of the Indian consulate in Vancouver on Saturday, according to Canadian media reports. They demanded an independent Sikh state, a simmering issue for decades, recently triggered once again. Protests have emerged in major cities such as Los Angeles and New York in response to Indian police's search for Sikh activist Amritpal Singh in India. The demonstrations echo civil unrest in the state of Punjab, where protests of several cities began Sunday. It led the government to shut down internet access for 27 million people. At protests outside Indian consulates and embassies in the U.S., people waved flags and chanted in support of the Sikh separatist movement to create a nation. Similar demonstrations have taken place in England, Australia, and Canada. Canada has the highest population of Sikhs outside Punjab in India. Before we end today's news, I would like to extend a special request. It takes 55 hours of work per day to produce this news segment for all of you. It is a news with a unique perspective, and you can find it only on here, Muslim Network TV. Sound Vision is a not-for-profit organization which produces it. And just like PBS and NPR, it depends on your donations. Please visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now or click the link below to donate. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.